Can you give us a walkthrough of, really what led you to creating the whole concept and project that is Jenkins the Valet and all that it's become?
Yeah, totally. I mean, so much credit goes to Yuga Labs, and what Yuga really pioneered back in April and May of 2021. The certainly the NFT space existed before them, and even in late 2020, and into the beginning of 2021, we would see people with NFT avatars as their profile pictures. But what Yuga did with the Bored Ape Yacht Club is they introduced art that was sort of a level of fidelity higher than like CryptoPunks, for example, and other like pixel art. And they gave the full uncapped commercial rights to their holders. And those two things created, like, I think, a really incredible community. And SAFA and myself were inspired to join that community. And we were inspired to try to contribute, as best we could to that community by like bringing some level of creativity to the table. We had noticed that, a lot of folks were doing different things in the Bored Ape Yacht Club. Some were organizing events, some were putting apes on merch and on wine and things like that. And we decided that one of the best things we could do to contribute to the space would be to create a character. So we bought Ape 1798. We named him Jenkins the Valet. The next day, with about 30 followers, we wrote a story about who Jenkins was. We introduced him as the head valet at the yacht club. It was such a big deal when he got the job that his mom cried, and he's never said no to doing an odd job that like a patron has brought him. And that story really resonated with the community, and we've really been off to the races, writing stories and building IP with our community like ever since.
Wow, that's awesome. You just started from the beginning like that with just the 30 followers, and the story kind of like was born and blossomed from there. I mean, did you know at the time that the creators of the Bored Ape Yacht Club were writers themselves and really had like a focus on the lore and story behind like what the yacht club is too?
When we first created the character, we actually didn't know anything about them aside from, I guess, what the rest of the community knew. As we started to really develop Jenkins, and I think they saw how serious we were, we started to build a really awesome relationship with them. That obviously led to us, setting like the first long form piece of work in their world, which takes a lot of trust in us. But yeah, we got to know them. We learned more about their background. Became clear that they really love literature, and it's been a huge influence for them. And so as we got to know each other more, it became clear why, one, I think why we saw eye to eye on so many things, but two, why they appreciated what we were doing with Jenkins.
Yeah, and I think the story for this podcast episode is going to be, or the themes is going to be stories and community. And I'm going to ask questions on one question for each. But first is a question on the story. When you set up that initial story, did you have where you are today kind of mapped out in your head? Did you know that's where you were going to want to eventually work? Or was it just kind of something you were doing really for fun to engage with fellow like apes and whatnot? Or, did it kind of spiral from there? Or did you really think that it was going to develop into like a successful NFT project on its own?
Yeah, that is a super interesting question. I think a lot. The answer is sort of both. Like the same exact principles that we believed in then, I think, are exactly what we believe in now. We never could have guessed that like it would have turned out this way, though. I mean, what we thought then was hey, like NFT avatars are this like really amazing like nudge in a direction to exercise creativity. And you can sort of like that's just true, and you can see in the space how true it is, because we are far from the only people who are doing like interesting or creative things with NFT avatars.
Mm-hmm.
And so our goal at the very beginning was to contribute to the space. And when that first story went well, we wrote again, and we sort of kept writing, and the following kept growing, and people were really engaging with what we were doing. And so, from that new context, we looked at each other and we were like, hey, like what could we do that might allow us to engage the community and work together to like do something at like on like a slightly bigger stage. And that was what motivated us, like making, you know, the writer's room and leading to our first NFT drop. And I think everything that's happened even since then has always been motivated by that same belief, which is that there's like this explosion of creativity that comes out from NFT ownership and from being like a participant in Web3, and that we can all work together to tell like better stories than we could do on our own. But like, there's no way we could have guessed that it would look like this back then, you know, if that makes sense.
You're listening to the Unstoppable Podcast, the go-to place for everyone to learn about the latest innovations in Web3, NFTs, and the decentralized web. Welcome to the Metaverse.